Hi, I'm Kitty Pergeson, Professor Emerita from Biola University in Southern California. Today I'll be talking about using very short texts in English language teaching, especially in multi-level classes. What do I mean by very short texts? They might be sayings, proverbs, quotations, various terms for them, and they have many different sources too. Some are ancient, like this one from Aesop. Some are more recent, like this one from computer science. Some come from famous people, like this quote by Nelson Mandela. Some from marketers, like this one, which made Nike a big brand. Some are from movies, like this one from The Wizard of Oz. Proverbs from around the world or in different languages, like this one said to be common in Swahili, reveal culture in both content and values. And there are also proverbs from various religious traditions, such as this one from the Bible, Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. Why do I like to use these very short texts in language classes? First, they're so short they can be read quickly. They're useful for both brief and extended activities. They can be used to practice all skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Students can engage with culture through them, and they can prompt critical thinking. I'm going to give you a few examples in these 4 categories. First, it's possible to find lots of sayings on the same topic. Here are some on the topic of serving others. This kind of collection is good for conversation classes and for writing prompts. I look for a variety of sources, both historic and contemporary, and varied national origins. The example earlier had quotations on a life of service. Here are some other topics about which you could find a dozen or more good quotations. Proverbs also offer an interesting way for students to compare cultures. Here are some on the topic of hurry versus patience. A good question can always be, what's a similar saying in your home culture or your home family? Even within the same culture, there are often contradictory sayings, and these are good for critical thinking and debate. You might also look for very short texts that are aligned with your curriculum. My next section on 5-minute activities shows how you can include some even in the very busiest of semesters or terms. Some may illustrate a grammar point, like these with comparatives, or these with noun clauses. Pronunciation teaching points can also be illustrated with sayings. No news is good news. Better late than never. Every cloud has a silver lining. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Sayings or quotations also fit a topic in our syllabus. Here's a unit called How Does Appearance Affect Our Success? And here are 3 sayings on that topic. Okay, we've talked about why and what. Now let's move to how. I'm going to discuss 4 kinds of activities. First, let's talk about activities that can be done in 5 minutes. You can write a proverb on the board, and as students enter the room, they write about it or talk about it. Prompts might be, agree or disagree. Give an example. Think of any exceptions. If public speaking is among your curricular outcomes, assign students a proverb for a 3-minute presentation. They need to be ready any time during the month in case you call on them. This way, when you've got an extra 3, 4, 5 minutes in class, a student can fill that time. In a class with a focus on writing or grammar, try a quick dictation, such as, to avoid sickness, eat less. To prolong life, worry less. And you can also try unscramble activities, such as this one. There are some remedies that are worse than the disease. Another writing activity that can be done very quickly is to use a quotation as a frame for writing. After learning the greatest wealth is health, students can write, the greatest wealth is family, faith, education. What do they think? Or the greatest poverty, happiness, failure. Or the kindest, bravest, cheapest, and so on. Now, let's talk about using very short texts in slightly longer activities like discussion. Use your favorite format or discussion technique, such as think, pair, share, rotating groups, four corners, cards with walk and talk or double line, or breakout rooms if you're teaching remotely. Which format will depend on how much time you have, as well as the space and time constraints in your classroom. I like to have a number of discussion questions, but I order them from my multi-level classes. For example, I tell the class, today I want you to discuss questions 1 and 2. If you have time, go on to questions 3 and 4. This way, everyone can finish the task, but the higher level students who finish fast stay occupied, and they keep using English as they go on to questions 3 and 4. Another way to scaffold discussion for a multi-level class is to provide extra help for lower level students. That could include an explanation of what the text means, either in a handout or in my lesson plan preparation for what I'm going to say to students as I walk around. Or it could be sentence stems to help lower level students know how to express their opinions. When you use conversation cards as your format or structure, you can color code the cards for a multi-level class. Lower level students choose or are given a card from the yellow pile, and higher level students get one from the blue pile. Regardless of the format, in a multi-level class, the fact that students are speaking in pairs allows for quite a lot of individual variation. A beginning level student may only be able to read the quote aloud and say, I like this, or this is a good idea. And an advanced student can say a lot more in the brief time allotted, elaborating and giving examples. I model both of those possibilities before students begin, so they're comfortable doing either one. Perhaps because our world is such a complex place, there are a number of contradictory proverbs. They provide fuel for class debates. For example, what's true? Too many cooks spoil the broth, or many hands make light work? Is it better to do something by yourself or to have a lot of people working on the task? This may be a formal debate, or it could be as simple as a pair discussion, with A being assigned one side and B being assigned to take the other side. Here's how to do it in a think, pair, share format. In managing complex grouping like this, I sometimes use a highlighter to mark a color on the handout I give the students. My instructions can then be, if you have a yellow handout, meet with someone who's also got a yellow handout. And then in the next stage, I can say, yellow pairs and blue pairs meet in a group of 4. Very short texts are also great for projects. In this example, students are creating a poster about an assigned quotation related to the topic of love. Here's an example of a task report sheet for a poster project. There are 6 tasks on this one, but you could add other tasks. For example, if you don't give the students the source of the quotation, ask them to research who said it originally. Or for advanced students, you can ask them to see how popular it is in written and spoken mediums. You can see from these tasks that there are some which require a higher level of written English or greater confidence in spoken English, and other tasks that are suitable for less proficient students. Here's another project that entails students using everyday sayings in skits. And here's another project, the interview. Here are some questions students can ask about their assigned saying to people they meet on campus, or for young learners, to a parent, grandparent, or friend. Here are some examples of sayings related to an action-oriented life that are good for an interview project. If you want to make this interview project easier for lower level students, here are some suggestions. Give them a shorter and easier saying, like, actions speak louder than words. They can have fewer interview questions. For example, they might simply ask, have you heard this saying? Have you ever used it yourself? There should be plenty of class preparation, and recording answers lessens the strain of understanding what their interlocutors are saying to them. And finally, if you have very low students, instead of sending them out to talk to anyone they happen to meet, prepare some guests in advance. After doing their interview, students can present results, either up front in class if you have time, or via video, using an app such as Flip or your course management system. Let me finish up with a word about choosing proverbs and quotations. Keeping student proficiency level in mind is very important. Some sayings are nice and simple, but others are complex and hard to understand, not just because of grammar or vocabulary, but because of underlying concepts. As we've talked about, different sayings can suit different objectives and student learning outcomes, speaking, writing, grammar, culture, and so on. Ideally, we're choosing from among a variety of different sources and cultural traditions. A student might be delighted to see his or her culture represented in what the class is learning from. And finally, the quotations we choose can be a good way of conveying our values, representing general wisdom and pointing students to the common good. Here are some resources that might be helpful if you want more ideas on finding and using very short texts. Thank you very much.